Oh, JJK has come to an end, and with the final chapter, I want to talk about the future implications of this chapter and what actually happened and what went wrong. So I'm going to be talking about the most recent chapters, so spoiler warning if you're not caught up. I think I want to make a separate video covering the actual end of the Sukuna fight, because that's kind of completely separate from the last 3 or 4 chapters we got after that. One thing I will say in this video is I did want more of Yuji on Sukuna, like, one-on-one time, because they didn't really have too many chapters to explore that, and we didn't really learn too much about Yuji's domain expansion, but that's kind of besides the point. Let's get into these last chapters. Well, the first thing to happen immediately following Sukuna's defeat is surprising Megami with Nobara's revival, which I thought was funny, kind of mirroring how they did this with Yuji in Season 1. So we learn that Gojo wrote letters for Megami and Nobara. Nobara, he just tells her some information about her mother, and for Megami, he says, "Sorry, I killed your dad." Of course, that's Toji, and that's actually really funny. But this leads into one of my biggest issues with the final few chapters, is we get, like, no funeral, no, like, really recognition that Gojo's gone, other than small moments like this, which are good moments, but also, like, I wanted something bigger. By no means am I saying I want Gojo back, because I think his death was actually really good, and I'm not one of the copers, you know, saying he's gonna come back next chapter. I wouldn't mind, but I just don't think it would be great for the story. But I think we need to see more characters react and kind of mourn his death, and we didn't really get that. So immediately following them opening Gojo's letters, we learn about Yuta, and he's back in his original body, and Maki is very pissed off at him. I'm really happy Yuta is back in his body, and it just makes sense. So was using RCT to heal Yuta's body, and she didn't follow him into Gojo's body when he swapped. We get more debrief on the battle, which I think is nice. Maki suggested that they should have used Inumaki's cursed speech when Higuruma had the sword, and you know, hindsight's 20/20, but we can't be looking at stuff like that. Also confirmed that Todo was the one who swapped Yuta into the surprise attack on Kenjaku. I think this is a nice touch as well. Also confirmed in this scene, Higuruma did survive, which is really nice, and I figured this would happen. The panel of Kiara and Wee Wee coming in and saving him was too obvious that he was going to be saved. They also were using Rika as the battle bus, literally. Akari says they were lucky to wait inside of Rika, and this is when Higuruma and Yuji and himself kind of jumped Sukuna right after Kashimo died. We get even more yapping, with Todo regretting he wasn't able to save Choso and Yuji from Sukuna's domain, Ino having similar regrets about not saving Choso, and Yuji kind of reassuring them. Then we have Maki just slandering Yuta for pretty much no reason other than just to be a bit. Then we have Miwa yapping a bit. All she did was use her simple domain, pretty much. Then we have Momo saying she did nothing, and that's right, I don't even know why she's getting a panel here. We have Nobara saying she just woke up, and Hakari says he would have joined in the Sukuna fight after he beat Urame. And then Wee Wee claims he's the GOAT of the fight, and honestly, I can't blame him for that. He was doing so much work during this fight, just swapping people out, saving people. He was low-key the MVP of this fight, probably outside of Yuta and, of course, Yuji. 269, we get this random subplot about Mei kind of ending the monopoly on the simple domain. So now Kusakabe is the head of the new Shadow Stock, and in the future, Wee Wee will become the new leader, and Mei suggests that they'll collect money from this, of course, because she just loves money. But yeah, generally this kind of felt like a waste of pages to me, although, I mean, it's nice to have, I guess, to learn more about simple domain, but with 2 chapters left, yeah, I don't know. Chapter 270 starts with Megami at Sumiki's grave with Shoko, then shows Utahime and Gakuganji discussing how to replace Tengen's barrier, and they said they would use Sukuna's remains to hold it up for a little while longer. Then we see Maki giving her sword to the Katana and Sumo guys, and I'm happy to see them again, but the second to last chapter does not feel like the time to bring them back. They also discuss removing the culling game players by trying to use Angel's technique to remove the cursed objects and kind of free the people that their bodies were taken over. We then see Takaba with what looks like Ghetto, and he's speaking to him about, you know, his stand-up routine and different jokes they were using. But this is easily the most baffling part of this chapter and the final chapters in general. Like, that is 100% Kenjaku or Ghetto, and I don't know why Gege would even draw him here without, you know, having people spout theory. But this one panel essentially opens a massive can of worms. Higuruma says he's now going to be used as a sorcerer. Megami taking responsibility for Angel's missing arm, and she, of course, is weird about it. But this makes me think, I want to make another tier list of JJK's dumbest characters, and I think she would be on it, so let me know what you think of that. And then there's some setup for the final chapter with a girlfriend who's seeing a boyfriend with massive eyes, and they figure out that it is a curse user that is doing this. And so Yuji says it's going to be a cinch for them to figure this out. The final chapter begins with Megumi, Nobara, and Yuji discussing a plan to figure out where the curse user is. And so their plan is to go up a building to try to get out of the 50-meter range that they believe his technique has, and once it deactivates, they think that they can locate the curse user, which they do, and we see Nobara jumping down the side of a building using her hammer, and this is just sick. I just love these last final panels of the whole squad together. We get to see Yuji and Nobara landing together, and this panel specifically of them together just warms my heart. Love to see them together again. And Megumi ends the chase very quickly using his demon dog to capture the suspect. So they capture him, and they're not quite sure why he's doing the things he's doing, but it has something to do with him buying a bag for the woman, so he's kind of stalking her and doing things to her boyfriend. I don't know, kind of weird. So we get a little Gojo content in this chapter, and it's when him and Yuji were doing switch training, and he says he wants Yuji to be more forward-thinking. Gojo says, "Haven't we had enough, Gojo Satoru?" He says, "Sure, I want you to carry on my dream should anything happen to me, but if this is where I bow out, there will be a point where you guys grow further than I ever did, right?" Yuji says, "None of us could ever forget you." And of course, Gojo says he's expecting great things from Yuji. This is where Yuji says that Gojo seems kind of nervous, but he says he's confident as ever, and we love to see that. It cuts back to Yuji talking to that curse user that just appeared, and he asks him to join them and atone for his sins. So, you know, that shows some character development by Yuji, but he's really always kind of been like this. I think this next page actually is very important. We see Yuji is still missing those 2 fingers, and Nobara asks, "Hey, what about that one thing?" Yuji says, "Chill, it's not dangerous anymore, it's the perfect ward." And Megumi says, "You're incorrigible," which means, you know, Yuji doesn't change, or he doesn't want to change. And of course, I think they're referring to Sukuna's finger here. And, you know, the end of this chapter, we'll talk about it more, but it seems kind of weird that they're leaving this open. The next page shocked me, to be honest. We have Mahito showing back up again in some sort of either dream sequence or pre-death sequence. And he says, "Sukuna, you got here first," and Sukuna's surprised to see him, obviously. Since Mahito's curse technique can kind of touch your soul, he says he's kind of in charge of this passageway of the circulation of souls. Mahito says, "I think your life is about revenge against everyone who scorned you as an abomination." He says, "That is my nature, I know no other way," but I think he has a moment of reflection here, which is insane for Sukuna. But he says, "No, that's wrong, I could have chosen how to live." So there are 2 women on either side of him, Urame, of course, on the right, and on the left, I don't really know who that is, but we can speculate all day about that. But he says, "Maybe I'll change how I live, if there is a next time." Like, okay, this is kind of baiting us into thinking there's something else after this, right? Mahito says, "But that's boring, you're gonna settle down," and I guess he's mad another character wants to marry Urame. Sukuna says, "Of course, after all I lost," as he walks away with Urame, and again, this is insane that he's having self-reflection at all. And the final words of the entire story is Mahito saying, "But then I'm the only unruly child left," as he screams and falls into the abyss. Yuta, Panda, Inumaki, and Maki together, and Hikari and his girlfriend. And then we get to see Yuji, Nobara, and Megumi for the last time, and they all look amused. We then see a shrine, and the door is literally opening. It's kind of opening on its own. Also, the shrine looks like the Celebi one from Heart Gold Soul Silver. But the last panel of the entire manga is, of course, Sukuna's middle finger, and people have made the joke, Gege's flipping us off one last time. And it's just crazy that this is the last panel, because I feel like it is leaving the door open, and the panel before this was the door of the shrine creaking open, and it feels like he's literally saying, "I'm gonna leave the door open," but, I mean, I don't know what is going to come after this. Like, I would love a sequel, but there's no hints to it other than just being like, hey, maybe there could be one. I feel like a lot of questions have come out of these last few chapters, so I'm definitely going to be covering more of this in the future, and of course any future announcements I'll cover as well. But I want to thank you guys a lot for coming along with this journey. It's really sad to see JJK end, but I've loved every second of it despite its downfalls. I've really enjoyed it, obviously. I mean, I wouldn't have been making videos on it if I hated it. But I'm going to continue to make videos and cover this content because I truly do love it, and I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.